Welcome everyone. Thank you so much again for joining us to this month's September's Orange Spotlight webinar. Today we are just so excited to have you here, and we're going to be talking today about developing a volunteer team and a culture within your core ministry, and looking at how the field uses the Orange curriculum in a unique way, not just necessarily Sunday school, but throughout the week. We're just so glad to have you here. Again, just a reminder, these webinars are monthly, and they're an opportunity to create a community of leaders and officers within our territory that want to come together and share ideas and gain some information, and just to be able to brainstorm or grow or try something new in our own ministries. And so we really want to encourage you through these webinars to glean some ideas, take some information away, but also we want to encourage you to connect with one another. So these webinars are one way in the presentation. It's not a video conference where we have the participants being able to do question and answers live, but you are able to participate in our group chat, which is the question and answer section. So we want you to take advantage of that group chat, introduce yourselves, share a little bit maybe about your core and what parts of the Orange curriculum you use, but you also can ask questions, and we have chat room monitors that will make sure that your questions get answered, and then we'll have a time live at the end of this session to answer some of those questions from our presenters and experts as well. So please take advantage of that, create that community, introduce yourselves, enjoy what we can glean from one another. As I said earlier, this month we are focusing on developing a volunteer team and culture, and that is such an important thing. I think more than ever, it's fall. Normally we're going into our fall programming and having new and exciting ideas. And this year might look different in how you're delivering those programs and how you are connecting with your families. And so it might be more important now more than ever to connect with your volunteers, your core leaders, to ensure that you're meeting the needs of the youth and the families that participate in your core, in the ministries and the programs that you have going on. So how do we do that effectively is what we really want to encourage today. So I encourage you again to use that chat. If you are having any technical difficulties getting connected, staying connected, please be assured that we record this session and we will email that out to all of the attendees who registered for this webinar today. So without further ado, I want to just introduce, we have Jackie back from Orange. She is our Salvation Army Orange specialist. She knows the Salvation Army. She also knows the Orange curriculum really well, and she has a passion and a heart for ministry and meeting people where they're at, encouraging ministry not just to youth, but to the entire family. And so today we asked her to present a little bit on developing that volunteer team and culture within your ministry. And so I'm going to just, without further ado, pass it on to Jackie. And thank you so much, Jackie, for being willing to share with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me and letting me come onto these webinars. I'm so excited that the Central Territory is kind of jumping straight into Orange, even in the middle of this crazy pandemic times in your ministry. And the fact that you guys want to learn more about how to do things even better at your core. And this month's webinar is fantastic because volunteers are the unsung heroes of ministry. No one can do ministry, no church can do ministry without volunteers. And something that I really love about the Salvation Army, as Peggy said, I grew up in it. But whenever I go to a core, there's so many people who are willing to jump in every aspect of the core. You know, volunteers aren't just people who are needed to lead Sunday school. They're not just people who are needed to be on stage. But volunteers are those people in the back, folding programs, helping people get to their seats, finding ways to connect with new people in the church. We need volunteers. There is no way core officers can do everything. There is no way YPSMs, core sergeant majors, there's no way that they can do everything that's needed in the church. We need to be a body of Christ, and that body requires a lot of moving parts. It requires a lot of volunteers. But the reality is we don't always have as many volunteers as we want. And it's really important to note that this is not just a Salvation Army thing. This isn't even just a church thing. Volunteers are necessary for a lot of things, and we're always going to want more of them. So it's always going to be this kind of balancing act of finding how many people you can get to volunteer in your core to kind of fill those jobs that we have where you need people. there's always going to be a struggle. You're always going to want more volunteers. And there's going to be ideas that work for one core that isn't going to work for another. And that's absolutely okay. Your core is special, your core is unique, and your core people are as well. But this is a great time to let's brainstorm some ideas of how we can develop more volunteers in our core. Maybe it's a great time in the chat to connect with another core in your division or anywhere around this territory and come up with some great ideas and just find out what we can do to get volunteers. Now, I hear a lot from cores whenever I first connect with them and we chat about Orange. They kind of let me know, wow, we need a lot of people to pull this off. Not necessarily true, but you do need people. We really can't have a ministry that's based around one person. As you all know, core officers can't do everything and they shouldn't do everything. Because if that core officer, when they leave to their new core, who's going to be left to run the ministry? We cannot build ministries around single people. We need many volunteers to help keep things going as life happens and as people move along. So it's really important to know that, volunteers necessary, can't just be the core officer doing everything. And if you don't have leaders in your core, if you say, Jackie, I love what you're saying, but I don't have volunteers, congratulations. You are already on step one, which is a great place to be, cultivating leadership at your core, creating a volunteer culture. This is something that's going to take time. This is something that might not have immediate results, but it's going to be great, especially if you're in a core that doesn't have volunteers, to build this culture up. So when you as a core officer or a youth leader leave and the next person comes along, you're leaving them a really great volunteer foundation for them to work off of. So when you say, oh, I don't have any volunteers, that's okay. That's a great step one of let's figure out how we can make sure that we can get the community, the congregation involved in your everyday ministry. Number one is look for leadership skills. And let's be really careful not to place leadership on a pedestal that makes it seem really unattainable. We really need to find a way to make leadership accessible to our congregation. Some people may never be a Sunday school teacher, but that doesn't mean they're not a great volunteer. There's hundreds of different jobs in the core that they can fulfill. So if you find someone who's really good at talking to another person, maybe that's someone who can be on your welcoming team. Maybe there's someone who's really organized. That's a great person to ask to help keep all of your materials together in a back closet somewhere. Or if you have a great teenager who is driving you absolutely insane and being really crazy, that is a perfect volunteer to be someone to lead your youth ministry or to be a storyteller in your youth ministry. So it's really important to look for those leadership skills in people, but not narrow the idea of leadership and only have a few set skills. Another thing is to provide opportunities for people to volunteer. If there's nothing for them to volunteer for, it's really hard for people to step up. If they don't know what you need, people aren't just going to come up to you and say, hey, I'd love to volunteer. As much as we would love for them to do that, that's pretty rare. So we need to provide opportunities for people to be able to use their leadership skills, to be able to volunteer in the core. Another thing is to get to know your people. It's really hard when you only have 2 or 3 set opportunities that have very specific skills that your people just might not have. Instead of taking your volunteers and trying to fit them into a specific job, think about your volunteers and think about what job would work for them. Kind of create opportunities around your people instead of trying to put them into jobs and put them in places into the core. Sometimes people don't know what they would be good at because they think, oh, there's only one specific job that's needed. There's a lot of music programs in the Salvation Army, but we also have a lot of people, like myself, who are not musical. So when we can provide those opportunities for us to be able to volunteer somewhere, not just in those programs that seem to be a little bit more visible or almost a little bit more popular, but providing opportunities for people for what they're good at, let them to use those skills in our core. Sometimes those skills are going to be things that aren't technically maybe what the Salvation Army is known for. Maybe it's not something that you ever thought could happen at your core, or a program that maybe you didn't think of starting, but is a real love of someone in your core. Let's find those opportunities for them to jump in. And let's also demystify the idea of leadership. Sometimes people won't volunteer because they think they're not enough. They may not think that they're, someone that can have those opportunities. They may feel that they don't have the right qualifications to be able to do that. And I think that that's definitely not on our leadership. It's just on this idea of, we can't, I'll never be able to get up here because I'm only down here. We have to kind of demystify it for our congregation and let them know everyone is needed. Everyone has value and everyone has a job that they can do in the Corps that's worth doing. And sometimes it's a job that only they can do well. When we really feed into our volunteers, when we really highlight them and we really recognize what we're good at, we're affirming who they are in the body of Christ. Sometimes it's going to be really hard for someone who doesn't love public speaking. If you only give them opportunities to do public speaking, they may not feel like they're a good volunteer for you. But if you really hone in on what they're good at, maybe organizing, and you give them those opportunities and you affirm those opportunities for them and affirm the job that they're doing, that volunteer is going to be way more likely to have a commitment towards what you're wanting them to do, instead of just saying, hey, I don't think this job is for me, and then kind of goes by the wayside. So there's always opportunities that we can provide for our volunteers. Now, it's really hard right now in the pandemic. I completely understand. We have corps who are already meeting in person, but some corps that are still only doing online. And so trying to find volunteers for both can be a little bit of a struggle because there's different needs. So if your ministry is in person, I always suggest, if you really need volunteers, put in a personal ask. Sometimes if we're only giving asks from a pulpit, if we're only giving general asks instead of being really personal with it, people might not recognize that you're actually talking to them. I know when I was sitting in a congregation and my corps officer would ask for a volunteer, 100%, I always assumed somebody else was needed or somebody else is going to take that job. Corps officer's not talking to me, but then no one ends up filling that position. But if you as a corps officer or even as a youth leader go up to someone, an individual in your church and say, hey, I've recognized that the teens really, really like you. They like to talk to you and they really respect you. Could you actually be our teen leader? Like, how great would that volunteer feel to feel known, to feel like, something that they're good at has been seen, and to have that personal ask for them to be a part of that volunteer team? I think that makes all the difference. So the more personal asks we can do, the absolute better. Sometimes we have way too many volunteer opportunities that we need to fill to be able to do those personal asks, or you would be on the phone all day trying to get people. Something that I saw in the Western Territory that I think is such a fantastic idea was someone actually created a job board. They had a cork board in the fellowship hall and they had index cards. And on each card, it was written a job that needed to be done to help with the youth ministry. These jobs were definitely small. Some of it was just printing out the curriculum itself. Some was gathering ideas. My favorite one was building sets and decorating. And it had the name of the job, the day that they would like that person to come in, and it gave a general estimate about how much time was needed for them to fulfill that job. And it was really great because the congregation could look on that job board, could find something that was interesting to them. They would take off that card, sign their name, put it in the offering plate, and they would have that job. That would be their volunteer opportunity. It really helped because it wasn't general asks, it was very specific. It was great about respecting someone's time. If they said they can only give 1 or 2 hours, there was jobs that would only take 1 or 2 hours. And it was really a way for someone to be able to grab those opportunities who might not want to go up to the corps officer, who may be a little nervous to have the corps officer talk to them as well, but it was a really non-threatening way of finding different volunteer opportunities in the corps. Another thing that I think is really important is to have flexible commitment times. Now here at Orange, you hear us talk about it a lot in small group leaders. We always ask for them to commit to at least 1 full year. That is a very long commitment. I myself am a middle school small group leader and I put in a 3-year commitment, and that made me pretty nervous and shaky because who knows what life is going to look like in a few years. And having a commitment of 3 years just seemed quite a bit, but it was something I still wanted to do. But you're going to have volunteers who might not be able to commit to a full year. So finding different volunteers opportunities where they can be flexible on that commitment time is really great. One thing that I love about the 252 curriculum is we have storytellers that if you didn't use the videos and instead you use the scripts, we have storytellers that give the Bible story. This could be someone who just volunteers for 1 month. They just come into your Sunday school and ask the storyteller. They actually give that Bible story. So it's about a 15-20 minute commitment for 1 month. I think that's great to get people cycled into the ministry. They get to know your youth ministry. They get to be a part of it, but they're not signing on to such a big commitment that maybe they're not ready for. So finding ways to have flexible commitment times is going to be really helpful to your volunteers, who we all have them, those volunteers that are incredibly busy, or volunteers that we know who volunteer for everything, and we kind of want them to take a break and maybe take a step back and let other people jump in and volunteer. Now, on the other side of this, if you are virtual, it can be really hard to get volunteers. Number one, because you can't see people face to face. And it's a little bit easy for people to dodge our phone calls, our text, and our Zoom calls. I know that because I dodge them too. I completely understand. So getting volunteers during this pandemic is absolutely not easy. But when you do, if you do a personal ask and someone is willing to lead from home right now, there are a few things that you can do to help them along, especially if they're new to technology. If you're going to have your leaders use something like Microsoft Teams or Zoom, if you could maybe once a week try to connect with them to teach them a few things on Zoom, maybe show them how to do reactions, so show them how to do polls, show them kind of how to use that technology. That's going to be really helpful to your volunteers. I'm actually training some people who ask. Anyone who reaches out, I don't mind helping out. And a lot of it has been some older, not very computer literate people who really want to reach out and really want to help with the youth. And they've been more than willing to learn how Zoom works, to learn how team works. And that's so exciting for us because it's one generation learning something to meet the next generation. I love that idea of a volunteer doing that. Another thing, if your volunteers are going to be virtual, is let them be creative. It's going to be really hard if you give them everything that they need to do. We all know in virtual life, nothing goes perfectly. Something is going to happen. Someone's call is going to drop. Someone's screen is going to freeze. And if they have a rigid lesson plan that they have to follow, it's going to be really hard for volunteer to deal with those situations when they come up. I know for me, if a technology issue happens, I almost freeze. I don't really know what to do. So we're really empowering our volunteers. Be creative. If the lesson I sent you isn't working, tweak it, change it. You know your kids best. So maybe the game that I gave you to do isn't going to work well. Give them the freedom to pick another game that's going to work for them. Maybe even Sundays doesn't work as a family for them to Zoom in for Sunday school. Maybe we can do it Monday nights. Maybe we can do it Tuesday nights. Trying to be really flexible is really helpful. And giving your leaders autonomy. If maybe you are meeting in a building, but if a lot of the Sunday school families aren't really feeling safe, maybe give that leader the autonomy to, hey, let's meet outside on the lawn in front of the court. Maybe it's meeting outside of a Starbucks and everyone masked and social distance, but at least we're still meeting someplace. So allowing that flexibility with your volunteers and empowering them, showing them that you trust them, that this is their group and that you just want to feed into them. Another thing that's really important for volunteers is just to recognize and appreciate them. Volunteers give up a lot of their time. It's every Sunday they are there. And as much as we say, yeah, of course, as the body of Christ, they should be there, they should be doing those jobs, we still need to recognize people and affirm what they're doing. An easy thing that I know during the pandemic is really hard, but just providing coffee at the core for your volunteers can be a huge, big thank you. Maybe once a month, a donut would be awesome. My favorite thing is just getting handwritten cards, maybe writing out to your volunteer once a quarter and saying, hey, I see what you do, I value what you do, and I very much appreciate you. In our curriculums in the Prelude section, now we always include a volunteer appreciation gift. Sometimes it's a card, one time it was a candy bar wrapper. It's just little things to let your volunteers know that they're seen, that they are heard, and that they're valued. And when volunteers do feel that, their commitment level is going to be through the roof. When people feel known and loved, and when they feel valued and needed, they're going to be more likely to stick with that commitment of volunteering for you. So any little way that you can provide appreciation is absolutely awesome. Not saying that your volunteers have to have it, not saying that your volunteers are expecting it, but it's a nice little treat every now and then to know that they were thought of. Another thing that's really important is to accept your volunteers' feedback. This one can be really, really hard because volunteers sometimes see things that we don't. They see the backside of an event that maybe we kind of were missing a little bit, and they've noticed something that could be a little bit better in the future. When we take that feedback, we really show our volunteers that their time is respected just as much as they respect our time. These volunteers work with our kids, they work with adults, they work with people in the Corps. They know them. So when they come up to you with feedback saying, hey, maybe we should try this, or maybe this could be done a different way, it's always respectful to hear them out. This is really important, especially if you're changing. You know, if you're a Corps who's just deciding to use orange, it's going to be a little bumpy along the way. And we want to hear your volunteers' feedback. We want to hear what's not working, because if we don't, how can we fix it? The worst thing is for a volunteer to feel like their opinion doesn't matter and that they're not necessary, which is absolutely not the truth. We know this. But volunteers can feel like that very easily if they're not felt like they're included in the ministry. So however we can include their opinions, their feedback, their ideas. You know, sometimes we plan events so often that after a while, they look the same to us, and we need a little outside perspective. We need a little fresh blood to kind of help us see, oh, we could change that up a little. We could try this a little. When volunteers see that they're needed and necessary, again, that commitment level, they want to be a part of this ministry. They feel like they need to be a part of this ministry, and they do. They really do start to feel like they're a part of the body of Christ. Again, I'm not trying to minimize that, you know, volunteers are easy and out there and, you know, just go grab them and you'll have enough. I know that it's really hard and it's really tough. But when we really work hard to create a culture where our volunteers are valued and they're known, and we make sure to put them in jobs where we know they're going to succeed, or we put them in jobs where we have recognized that they have skills, people are going to come out of the woodwork. People are going to be wanting to be a part of your programming in different ways. It's all about seeing the differences in our people, recognizing and embracing those, and finding ways that we can fit them all together as the body of Christ. I hope that was helpful for you. I actually have some resources. If anyone is interested, please send me an email at jackie@thinkorange.com. I have a few volunteer appreciation resources, and I have a volunteer recruitment guide that I would love to send you. So be sure to email me, jackie@thinkorange.com, and I will say the first person who emails me will get a copy of our Lead Small book, My Gift to You. So please email me because I want to give that away to someone. But it's a great way, it's a great book that can help your volunteers recognize how important they are and how necessary they are to lead their few in the Corps. So be sure to email me, jackie@thinkorange.com, and I'll be able to get those resources for you. Thanks, guys.
Jackie, thank you so much. I love a good giveaway, so don't delay in emailing Jackie, getting those resources, trying to get the book. That is so important. One of the things that Jackie was saying was this idea of we all have the jobs that need to be filled, but to be able to modify and look at the skills or the assets that are brought to the table with the people in the Corps and the people that are willing to lead and volunteer, and matching up. So maybe it's taking apart or breaking down a need into several smaller jobs so that people are feeling successful. And I think that that's the philosophy of ministry that we're really trying to take with this Orange curriculum, is not saying this is how you do it, now make it fit into your Corps, but looking at the needs of your ministry and looking at the needs of the kids, the youth, the families in your Corps ministry, and saying, how can I use the resources available to me in order to meet those needs? Having that same mindset, that bottom-up mindset with your volunteers and leaders. I also loved the idea of not having someone do a long-term commitment. You know, there's always somebody that is just unsure if they're really going to like this, and so giving them that storyteller option just for a short-term commitment, and then maybe they find that they love it and they found their people and they can continue to do that. So thank you so much. There was just so much information, and again, to know that there are continued resources out there as you continue to build and grow your leadership and volunteer team in your ministry. That is exciting and so key. So take advantage of that too, please. The other thing that I just wanted to mention is, in our chat section if you have questions, or if you have thoughts, or if you have things that have worked at your core. Be sure to include that. You can post that to us. You can share some ideas. You can put a question out there that you would like Jackie or perhaps Captain Sarah to answer at the end of our time together. Which does bring me to the next presenter we have for today, and I'm very excited. We have Captain Sarah Eddy. She's the Corps Officer in Canton, Illinois. I had the opportunity last summer to do a week-long training, and Sarah was there. And her level of excitement and creativity and willing just to jump in to take and try something new is so exciting. She's also kind and very passionate about sharing Jesus with the people that she ministers to. And so I'm so excited today that she was willing to come and share a little bit about her core and how they use the Orange curriculum and materials to meet the needs of the ministry at her core and what works best for them. So Sarah, again, thank you so much for joining us, and I can't wait to hear about what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much, Peggy. I am excited to be able to share. This is such a new opportunity for me to be able to share what we're doing here in Canton. To give you a little bit of a background about where I come from and what's happening here in Canton. I grew up in the Salvation Army as well, in a sense. I was one of the program kids that we're talking about today that came to the Corps and learned about Jesus and had an opportunity to go to camp and experience those kind of things when I wouldn't have necessarily gotten that at home. And so it was super exciting. It's exciting to be able to share this today with everyone. My Corps is located in the middle of nowhere, Illinois, for lack of better words. We are 45 minutes west of Peoria, and no one comes to Canton just to come to Canton. It's one of those places that it's kind of off the beaten path. We are a farming community. We have a population of 14,000 people, so it's not very big, but the Salvation Army is doing lots of work here, trying to reach out to our community. I'm trying to do things differently, trying to see what God has and see what He's offering to us, and understand that it doesn't always look like the traditional way. Sometimes we have to be willing to think outside of the box, try new things, and go different ways. And that's exactly what we've done when it comes to the orange material. I'll be honest and say when I first saw the orange material, it was overwhelming to me because it felt like at first I was like, there's so much stuff. How am I ever going to be able to use this? How am I going to be able to do each of these different things? And I was looking at it thinking, these things all have to come together, and I have to do each thing. But as I researched the orange material, as I looked at it, I realized how easy it is to be able to change it so that it can be used specifically to your core and your location. My core here, we have very few leaders. We're growing when it comes to ministry to the youth and ministry to the community. But we don't have a huge volunteer base. I love that that's what Jackie was talking about today, because it is something that takes a lot of work and a lot of creativity to be able to figure out how to make it work best. Here at my Corps, we are trying a new method of worship. And I'm not going to go into all of that today because there's a lot that goes along with it. But for the last few years, I've been working on trying to figure out what way is best to meet people where they are and be able to share Jesus with them. If your Corps is like mine and you're a small Corps, sometimes Sunday morning isn't always the strongest time to meet people. It's a great opportunity to worship together. It's a great opportunity to praise the Lord together. But we don't always have the leaders that we need on Sunday morning. We don't always have new people coming in that want the new experience, even the new way of worshiping with the orange. So I started using the phrase Tuesday is the new Sunday. And for a long time, Tuesday was my focus, and we'll still be doing some of that, especially COVID ruins all the fun. If you're like me, you know that COVID has ruined all the fun. And so some of our ways of doing ministry and reaching out and the plans that we had, of course, are kind of on hold because of COVID. But Tuesday was the new Sunday. We had the opportunity. There were times on Tuesday nights I would have upwards of 50 people in my building, between the leaders and the kids, and having the opportunity to sit down together and learn a lesson. what I found that was really great about the orange material is that a lot of my leaders were new to faith as well. And so doing the orange material and doing even the 252 kids lessons was a great opportunity to not only teach my kids about Jesus, but also to have the leaders learn about who Jesus was in the process. And what was really awesome about that is and of course, this is constantly evolving. Every few months, we have to reevaluate how we're doing this, what this looks like. Nothing is really set in stone here. I wish I could say it was, but we are constantly changing, constantly evolving in what we're doing. But when we first started using the orange material for our Tuesday night program, not only would I would lead the Bible lesson, and I would usually just use the script, and I would find different ways to use the script in order to teach the Bible lesson. But then afterwards, each of our troops, so our Girl Guards, the Adventure Corps, the Sunbeams, all of them would have their small group time together. So then that leader would then take that material and teach the small group time, whether it be a game, a prayer time, a small mini lesson, to try to emphasize material more. And it was a really unique opportunity to see the kids interacting with their leaders in that way. Many of the leaders were and still are new to their faith. And so them teaching that also helped them to grow in their faith and help them to learn in different ways. During our summer drop-in center, in a normal non-COVID year, we have a summer drop-in center, and during that time, we make sure to take an opportunity at least once a week to have a chapel time. The drop-in center is only a 3-hour program each day, where kids can come in and get a meal and have some programming. But it was important to us that we would always have a chapel time. And so we started using the orange material for the chapel time as well. And of course, the kids love the so-and-so videos and those different kinds of things that meet the kids in a way that I can't. I mean, I can get up and I can talk as much as I want to, but the kids don't want to hear my voice. They like to laugh at the crazy so-and-so videos and like to know what's going on there. So it's being able to know your audience and know that if the kids are getting really bored listening to you, they probably would benefit from watching a video, or making sure to add in those games. And that's the really cool part about the orange material, is that we're able to add in bits and pieces from all over. You know, you have all these choices. And like I said before, when I first looked at it, I said, there's so many choices. This is meant for a big core. That's not the case. You can use it in a small core as well, and in mighty ways, and you can split it up. I loved being able to teach the lesson on Tuesday night and use that same scripture on a Sunday morning to then tie it in with our entire church family. So that was a really great opportunity to do it that way. As far as right now with COVID, it's interesting because we're trying to find ways to reach out to our kids. Of course, this summer we had a whole different program. We couldn't really use the orange material in the process. It was a feeding program, and it was all over the place. But we are gearing up to do some Zoom meetings with our kids that involves the orange material. And so my youth coordinator, she's making boxes that have some snacks and stuff in it, but then also we'll have bits and pieces of the lesson to then talk about when they get on Zoom together. So there are still ways to do it. There's still ways to interact, and I'm looking forward to seeing how we're able to do that in the coming months. When it comes to the other side of Orange, the Live a Better story, that has been a huge blessing to us at our core as well. We use it in many ways. We're gearing up right now for our first, I'm calling it an online life group, where we'll use it's called Divided, and it's about people over politics is really what it comes to. Of course, perfect timing right before the election, and using that for the 3 weeks that it's available, but then also using it to start a prayer meeting together with the community right before the election, I think is an important part of our ministry. What I really love about the adult material is that not only can you use it on the video and then have some discussion questions, you could also use it as a regular Bible study and use it as a script. If you have people that haven't been taught how to teach a Bible lesson, it's a great starting point for them to learn how to shape it, to learn how to ask questions, to know what needs to go into that. I hear from some core that, that it may not be as deep of a lesson as they looked for, but the beauty of it is you can take it as far as you want to take it. If you need a surface level, you can keep it at surface level, and it's great. But if you need to go a little bit deeper, there are resources that it comes with that allows you to do that and allows you to have different scripture. And it's the same with the kids' lessons too. You can do just the basics, and that was something that was helpful for us here as we were getting started. We could do just the basics, but then as we wanted to grow and as we wanted to show other people show other kids what was going on, we were able to bring in the leaders. We were able to bring in those different kinds of things. I've also during the summer used it as a vacation Bible school before, where if you're not regularly teaching throughout the summer, you might have a whole month that you could use. And that whole month then would go into the week, and each day is a different lesson. And that's been an awesome opportunity too. It's an easy way to set up a vacation Bible school so that if you have leaders that aren't skilled in learning how to or knowing how to do a Bible school, this gives them the starting point. It gives them the games. It gives them there's just every little bit and piece that you could possibly need to be able to go on forward with that. So here at my core in Canton, we are trying many different ways to meet people where they are. The idea that I'm looking at right now, and it ties in really well with Orange, is how can we be the church? Not just go to church, but how can we be the church? How can we be involved? What does that look like in the context of what we're trying to do here at the Salvation Army? It's a difficult thing during COVID because we want so much to be able to be with people, and that's not always an option, but we're still able to be with people in many other ways, whether it be the porch ministry of dropping something off and saying, hey, there's a lesson here. If you complete it, we've got something special for you. Or if it's the opportunity of meeting on Zoom with the kids or doing those different kinds of things, there's still ways to reach out, and there's still ways to share with one another about Jesus, even in a context such as this. So I truly believe if it can work for my small community here, if we can make it happen with a small staff, a small group, you can make it happen wherever you're at. Orange is a great opportunity that we have to be able to share Jesus with many people.
Sarah, thank you so much. That was awesome. I love the idea of Tuesday is the new Sunday, and I think we can be encouraged to think, what is the new Sunday? We're in the middle of unknown times. What is the new? And we can have times to lament and let go of what was, but we can be excited because even as the world is changing around us, God is unchanging, and yet He brings newness to each day, to each opportunity, to each time I read the same scripture. There is newness there. So I love that about the character of God. He is unchanging, and yet He's completely new and challenges us as we need to continue to move forward and pivot and evaluate every few months or weeks or however it's going. But that something can be new, and it can be better, and it can be amazing. And so I'm so excited. It was so encouraging also to hear just how you're using Orange to not only minister to the kids, but to the leaders. What an awesome thing. As Jackie was talking about, as we lay the foundation, as we bring new volunteers and leaders in, they might be new in their faith. They might be new to this whole thing, and yet God can use them and they can grow. And so that's such an awesome part of this ministry. And I'm going to be continuing to pray for you, and so excited to see how God can continue to use it in your ministry and in ministries around the territory. Just another reminder, we have a couple questions that we can ask at the end here. And then at the very end of our presentation, we'll show you the preview video for the themes for First Look and 252. I love a good theme. I don't know if you will hopefully join each month and see that I love a good theme, to the point that the theme for 252 is off stage, drop the act. And I even have these cool masks that you should get for your ministry because I think they're so cool. But the idea is talking about the integrity of who we are, always being who we are. We use masks, we hide behind things. Now in COVID, we have to wear physical masks. But the reality is that we need to be genuine in who we are and the integrity of our character. And then I love in First Look, they're doing Singing in the Rain, and the idea that God's got this. He can take care of the unknowns, of the scary times, of the big times. God is there and present, and I think that is such an important lesson that we can share with our youngest members in our congregation. So I'm super excited. So stay tuned if you don't want to know more about that. We'll show those preview videos at the end. But for now, we do have a couple questions that I just wanted to put out there. I know some came through when you guys registered. So Jackie, I'm going to just start. This is a super basic one. We talked a little bit about it last time, but general question of, first of all, does Orange have Spanish material? And then if people are doing things virtually or remotely, how can they use the material through like Facebook? Can they just post a video out there? Do they have to send it out to the families? What's the best way to do that? So I'm going to let Jackie answer that question.
Those are really great questions. So I super appreciate it. Yes, we do have the material available in Spanish. So with our Spanish material, it will only be the starter section, which is actually where most cores should stay at. If you are on 252 or First Look, I highly recommend you staying in that starter folder. Those starter materials are found in Spanish. We've given Spanish access to usually one core officer per core, but if you are a core person who does have an account or a core officer and you don't see Spanish in your account, please just send me an email. I can add it to yours. All you have to do is when you sign in and you see my dashboard, Spanish is going to be found in that little section that says Other Downloads. As soon as you click Other Downloads, you'll see all 4 curriculums and it will say Spanish. For Live a Better Story, all you need to do is click on the series that you would like, and as you scroll down with a bunch of the options, it breaks it up into weeks. At the very bottom, we'll say Spanish translation all. The only thing we ask is as soon as we release a series, we actually release it to our translators, so they do take a little bit more time. So if we've just released a series, please give us about 2-3 weeks, and then we should have them all translated into Spanish on the Live a Better Story side. The only thing that we do not have is Spanish videos, and please know that we are working on it. We are trying so hard to make it happen. It is something that we're pushing for, and it just has a lot more roadblocks than we thought. But just know I can't say that it's coming. I can't say that it will be here, but I can say it is on our hearts and we are working on it. And in regards to putting things on Facebook, so we actually had suspended our copyright from March until July, and unfortunately we had to put it back into place. So we can't actually have the videos put directly onto Facebook. However, we have partnered with a company called Playlister. When you sign up with Playlister and link your account using your Orange credentials, all of your Orange media is actually available there on the Playlister site. You can create a custom playlist of Orange media, meaning you can grab, just like what Peggy did here, the countdown video, the music video, the actual story videos itself. You can put those all together in Playlister. Playlister then creates a custom URL that you are able to post on any social media or email out directly to parents. Or if you have a core website, you could put that URL on the website. So please don't put the videos directly up. If you use Playlister, you can. If you are wanting to put those videos directly onto Facebook, we do have something called an enhanced license that you can purchase. It would be separate from our Orange TSA contract, so it would be an additional purchase. And it's all based on how many kids you have in your ministry. If you're interested in that and want to chat about that, reach out to me and I can kind of explain that a little bit more to you. And if you're wanting to put Live a Better Story videos up, I highly suggest creating a closed Facebook group. If you have a closed Facebook group, meaning people can ask to join and you as an administrator let them in, you can post our materials in that closed group. So you can post the video, maybe even post some of those discussion questions. So if your adult small group is not able to meet in person, at least you'll be able to meet in that closed group. And it's still that safe idea of a small group. It's only people you know. That information will not be broadcast on any general Facebook. It stays straight in that closed group. You could do that. So if it's a closed Facebook group, you can post it. If you want to put it on Facebook, use Playlister or contact me and we can talk about the enhanced licensing.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jackie. I have a question that I'm going to send over to Captain Sarah. You were talking about, especially when you're doing it with your character building groups or your leaders, you presented the story and then you allowed them to continue the activity through a game or a prayer time or a mini lesson. So my question to you is, when you're navigating as the officer, as the main leader, and you've got volunteers or leaders that are going to continue that story, what information do you give them? Do you hand them the whole packet of information that just they have to navigate through just a portion of it? How do you help them pick out the parts of the lesson that they're going to teach? Because we talked a little bit in our last webinar how overwhelming, and you shared even yourself, how overwhelming, because there's such a vast amount of information. So Sarah, can you just tell us a little bit about how you have been able to give that to your leaders, to give them the autonomy to be able to teach it, but also not overwhelming them with that information?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting that you brought that up, because it was hard to kind of figure that out at first, is what I needed to offer and what I needed to give to them. And so I will pull the 252, the small group lessons, and especially when I do it with troops, I'll pull the age level that goes along with that. So that way it's best. And then I'll go through, and there's like 8 or 9 options of what the small group can do. And I'll go through and I'll make sure that if I'm going to have them do something, I provide all the material. So if I'm going to choose like number 2, number 5, number 7, and they're going to do all those activities, and I'm also going to give the leaders, here's all the material you need for those specific activities. Please read through it and do those. So most of the time they're not preparing beforehand. I don't have a group that will prepare beforehand. And so I prepare beforehand. I make sure that they have what they need and they know what they're going to go through and what parts of the lesson they're going to have. And sometimes we'll stay in the chapel and we'll do that, or they can go back to their troop area and do it that way.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And I think that that's really important as you, as those that are participating in listening to this webinar, as you get familiar with the Orange website and the curriculum, you can pick and choose what you're printing out. So you're not just printing out all of the information and really utilizing that so that you're not overwhelming yourself or your leaders. So that is great. And I love that 252 has the small group within ages. So it can work for the variety of kids looking at the same Bible lesson. Just a final question here, Jackie, just kind of more of information to the group. So there was a question in the chat just about how to access the playlister. And then if you could tag on some information, because you do strategy sessions, you do helpful sessions that really help navigate the how-tos, the very specifics of how to navigate the website. So if you could give that information and then maybe tag on to that, how is Playlister accessed?
Yeah, so Playlister is actually a website. It's playlister.app. .app. All you do is go on to playlister.app. It tells you to sign up. As soon as you sign up, in settings, it says link your Orange media. You just use your Orange credentials and instantly your account is linked. It is free. So it's something really beneficial for the Army. There's 2 sections of it, Playlister at home and Playlister at church. They're 2 kind of separate things, but putting those links on Facebook is Playlister at home. That's absolutely free. You can even upload your own videos. So you as a Corps officer or YPSM could do an introductory video, put that in your playlist and your kids can see it, which is so fantastic, so that they'll be able to see your face. And so they're not just seeing Orange media, they're seeing you. So playlister.app is the website that you would go to sign up. And you're right, every month I do 7 to 8 strategy sessions. Each month I go over every curriculum. I just go over what's in every single file, just in case you didn't quite know, and we can even chat about how we can contextualize to use the curriculums at your Corps. And then other times I have general strategy sessions, how to partner with parents. We talk about volunteer culture, talking about how to contextualize things for super individual purposes. Next month, I'm actually having my first Spanish strategy session, which I'm incredibly excited about. So I have a Spanish speaking OS who's going to be on just in case someone is more comfortable with that or wants ideas on how to include the Spanish material into their ministry. If you go to orangespecialist.org and go to meet the team, I'm on that top row. Just look for my face. It says Jackie Rail, Orange Specialist, the Salvation Army. If you click there, you can see all the group strategy sessions. Or if you'd rather have some one-on-one time where we talk specifically about your core, we can schedule a Zoom call where it's just you and I chatting for however long that you need. And please note, it's not a one and done thing. It's not like you only get one meeting with me. You can call, set up as many meetings, email whenever you want. I love being your person. I love being this help for you. So please don't feel like you can't email me whenever you need. No question is too big or too small. Reach out to me. If you join our Facebook group, Thinking Orange and the Salvation Army, I'm the orange specialist that answers you there. So if you don't want to wait for an email or you think it's easier throwing it up on Facebook, do that as well. So there's several ways to contact me, but that email is really the fastest and the easiest, Jackie@thinkorange.com for anything that you need.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, we will send out that information in the email that has the link to this video as well. So you're able to go back and you can see, you can reference some of the information here. You can listen to it again. You could maybe share it with the leaders at your core that you want to, but we will be sending out that email that has the link to this video. It will include the information for some of the resources that we have. Just want to encourage you that when you do email Jackie for some of those volunteer team resources, remember you could maybe get that free book. So that's really exciting. You don't want to miss out on that opportunity. And the other resource that I just want to encourage you guys again is that you have awesome divisional youth departments. We have a great team youth in the Central Territory, not just here at Territorial Headquarters, but every division has dedicated divisional youth secretaries and their team, and they are wonderful. They are passionate and they have great ideas. So if you are feeling like you're hitting a wall, if you want to Zoom together with your divisional team and Jackie, maybe you could do something like that, but that is another resource for you. Feel free to reach out to them as they, as you navigate through your ministry and as they can support you with resources and ideas. So that ends our time today. If you want to stay tuned for the upcoming theme for October, we'll be showing those videos to you. But again, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your questions. If you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to the resources that we've provided, to the people that you have in your corner. Thank you again to Jackie and to Captain Sarah. What an encouraging time to develop leaders, to set a foundation, to grow our youth and our leaders in their ministry opportunities. Thanks for the inspiration that we can do it no matter what size our core is, no matter what our ministry looks like. We can think of the new Sunday, the new way to do things. So again, thank you all for tuning in. Stay tuned for the videos and we'll see you next month. Bye, everyone.
Fall is my favorite time of year. Crisp air, colors changing, campfires, and yes, Halloween. Now I get it. This particular holiday is kind of a grab bag of emotions and reactions. Well, it's also a grab bag of candy and spider rings, but that's another story. But hear me out. I guess I just love how there's really no other holiday in our calendar year where people open their doors to strangers and where your neighbors come to you. I love pumpkins. I love dressing up. I love giving out candy, whether it's from my front door or the back of my car, which probably sounds pretty shady if you've never attended or participated in a trunk or treat, but I don't know, there's just something enjoyable about taking a night off from being you, getting to be someone else, a superhero, a character from a movie, or even just an exaggerated version of yourself. There's a line from the movie, it's The Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, where Lucy, in her uniquely honest way, says, "A person should always choose a costume which is in direct contrast to her own personality." It's particularly funny because Lucy is easily the most obnoxious character in the show, and her scary witch costume seems a little bit too appropriate. While it's fun to be in disguise, we're also choosing to display something different than our authentic selves. So let's be real for a second. Whether it's within our personal life, church life, work life, it's easy to fall into the habit of wearing a face that isn't necessarily our own. Integrity is more important than ever. And that's why we're taking the entire month of October to talk about it with our kids. We define integrity like this: choosing to be truthful in whatever you say and do. kids learn a lot about telling the truth. But just because you're saying one thing doesn't mean you're actually living that way. We want them to see the value of being true to themselves and others as they live with integrity. Throughout the month, we'll take a look at people who had integrity, lacked integrity, and a few principles that can help us have integrity with God and with each other, including our memory verse, Proverbs 10:9. Anyone who lives without blame walks safely, but anyone who takes a crooked path will get caught. Throughout the Bible, we see this played out in all sorts of ways. So let's dig in and help our kids discover more about integrity. We start the month with Daniel, someone known for his integrity long before his moment in the lion's den. When he and his friends were first captured by the Babylonian officials, no one would have known or cared if they followed God's law. But they knew what was right and followed the path of integrity. Bottom line, be truthful with your whole life. In week 2, we look closer at a verse that John wrote in his first letter to the church. 1 John 1:9 says, "But God is faithful and fair. If we confess our sins, he will forgive our sins. He will forgive every wrong thing we have done. He will make us pure." It's important to have integrity with people, but it's even more important to have integrity with God. God already knows what's on our hearts, and God has forgiven us through Jesus. But God still wants to hear from us, even when it's to talk to him about the times we've messed up. Bottom line, being truthful with God keeps you close to him. Then in week 3, we head to 2 Kings 5, where we find the prophet Elisha and his servant named Gehazi. Gehazi seized the chance to use dishonesty to take advantage of Naaman's gratitude and get riches for himself. He went behind Elisha's back, denied his actions, and inevitably lost Elisha's trust. We want kids to know that being truthful isn't just about telling the truth. It's about the relationship with the person on the other side of that truth. Bottom line, when you're not truthful, you lose trust. We finish out October with something Paul wrote in his letter to the Philippians. He tells them, "Finally, my brothers and sisters, think about what's true. Think about what's noble, right, and pure. Think about what's lovely and worthy of respect. If anything is excellent or worthy of praise, think about those kind of things." If we want to have integrity with our entire life, we have to fill our minds with good things in the first place. Bottom line, focus on what's true. Integrity is a really big deal. When those around us know they can trust what we do and say, our relationships grow stronger. And the opposite's true as well. But God has proven time and time again throughout history that he is a God who can be trusted. And we want to help kids learn to live lives that reflect all aspects of the character of God, especially when it comes to integrity.
Okay, have you ever been moving a large item with someone and it started to wobble or feel off balance, like you're losing control? And you just know that at any second they're gonna drop their end. And when this happens, that person will usually say, "Don't worry, I've got it." Or maybe you've had a child run up to you frantic to show you their latest scraped elbow or knee. And the blood makes it look much worse than it is, but you know they need attention and reassurance. So you say, "Don't worry, I've got it." People of all ages experience circumstances that leave us looking for someone who can help, someone who's got our back and can help carry the load. This month, we want to begin teaching preschoolers that God is the best someone for the job. No matter what our situation or how uncertain our circumstances may be, we can know that God is with us wherever we go, and God's got it. This kind of trust in God is what allows us to sing in the rain, which is why we thought Sing in the Rain would make the perfect theme. Week 1, we'll hear the story of how Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego trusted that God's got it as they were on their way to a blazing furnace. It truly is an amazing story of trust in God. In week 2, we see a mother trust that God's got it as she puts her baby, Moses, in a basket and hides him among the reeds on a riverbank. I can only imagine all of the conflicting emotions she must have been feeling, but her trust in God was bigger. In week 3, we get to watch the journey of another mother as she learns firsthand that God's got it. She had reached the point of giving up when God stepped in and showed her that he heard her son's cries and could give him exactly what he needed. We'll wrap up the month with one of the most popular stories in the Bible, Noah. Now, preschoolers love this story. I mean, how could they not? With all of the animals and the rainbow at the end. We'll use Noah's exciting story to teach the truth that God keeps his promises. If God says he's got it, then God's got it. Now, I don't have to tell you that there's a chance of rain in our lives or in the lives of our preschoolers. Many of us have already come through some pretty big rainstorms. Some of us are in them right now. And that's why it is our sincere prayer that during this month, we and our preschoolers will begin to trust that God's got it. This kind of trust in God is what will give you and me and our preschoolers the power to sing in the rain, no matter what that rain might be.